to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and this is the space where we explore practical ways to thrive in today's fast paced world while also staying grounded, healthy, holistically healthy, and present. Now, listeners, today's topic, it couldn't be more relevant. It's all about teaching kids mindful screen use to prevent vision problems and burnout. Yeah, it may sound overwhelming, but let me also share something with you. Well, screens are part of our lives, but at what cost? As children spend more time indoors on devices, we are seeing a spike in early eye strain, attention fatigue, and even signs of age related macular degeneration in kids. And joining us is Dr. Roger Wu. He's a board certified optometrist with over 25 years of clinical experience. But Dr. Wu isn't just treating eye issues, listeners. He's pioneering a proactive, fun approach to eye health with a ready to drink solution which is backed by science. And he's here to help us understand how we can create healthier screen habits for kids and teens, especially through mindful boundaries, outdoor balance, and some creative eye friendly games. So let's quickly dive in. So, Dr. Roger, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really so much honored to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sana, and thanks for having me here.
Okay, so of course, before talking about the solutions, let's address the problem and the current scenario, Dr. Roger. So, what exactly is happening to our kids' eyes? When they spend long hours on screens, and why should parents take this seriously?
Okay, let me tell you a little bit of the background. Obviously, people who um, basically have paid attention to the smartphone, the iPad, the development from the invention to the development for the past 18, 20 years, we simply cannot live our lives without those devices. So we pay the price because our eyes are not, I don't know, genetically programmed to do, near work all the time, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So nowadays, I'm telling you, 20 years ago, let's not go back too far. 15 years ago, if
Mhm.
I see a patient 30, 30-year-old getting dry eyes, one of the first things that we would do is order blood tests because there's got to be something inflammatory within the patient's system causing severe dry eyes. But
Mhm.
nowadays, so common. If I had to do that, ordering blood tests, I'll be ordering 40, 50 blood tests every single week. That's because everyone's on computers, staring at the computers, cell phone, iPad. And every time when you do that, our eyes don't blink as often. For example, if right now just chatting, our eyes typically blink anywhere from 12 to 18 times per minute. That's the average. So studies have shown that if you're looking at a digital screen, iPad or whatever cell phone, your blink
Mhm.
rate could go down as low as 2.5 times per minute. So
Oh,
that
wow.
decrease of blinking, along with some bad postures, can cause more tears to get evaporated. And that's one of the reasons that younger people are getting dry eyes these days. That's because of lack of blink. And another thing is, with all the power drinks out there, kids are relying more on juices, other drink, power energy drinks, than things like
Mhm.
that. They just don't drink enough water. So our tear film is about 94 to 98% water. So if you don't drink enough water, you're drinking other things. Then obviously the hydration issue is another factors of causing dry eyes. So that's why we're seeing more and more younger kids getting dry eyes. I've seen, people not even, kids not even 10-year-old getting dry eyes right now because they're on their cell phone all the time or computer all the times. Unfortunately, the devices sometimes for those kids, it's becoming our like electronic nannies. A lot of parents decided not to, spend time with their kids, just throw them an iPad, and so to keep kids quiet. I mean, we see that all the time at the restaurants, for examples. So it's
Mhm.
just a bad habit to have right now. So I'm trying to educate people, trying to minimize these issues. That's why I decided to come up with this hopefully a very very effective, very very efficacious way a fun way, a tasty way to minimize these issues.
That's really commendable, Dr. Roger. And yes, I think it will sound very overwhelming, but and this is evident. I mean, I am seeing kids, babies as young as 2, 3 years old having, huge specs. I mean, it may look like trendy, but it's almost normalized. But it shouldn't be. I mean, I cannot even use the word maybe, but it shouldn't be because, in fact, 15, 20 years back, when I was in my school days, and we did share this before we started recording the podcast. I got my specs at an age of 12 or 13. But that was largely because I had to study under, candlelight because of rampant power cuts. And that kind of led me to have specs. But right now, I'm seeing, young kids getting specs and completely stuck to their phones, the screens, um, which is really, really concerning.
Yes, exactly. That's why, when it comes to those eyesight issues, obviously there's the nature versus the nurture debate. There's the nature, obviously, is genetics. If your parents have really bad eyesight, chances are you'll have some sort of a eye problems down the road. But there's the nurture issue, which is the environmental factors. So nowadays, if you look at, I'm not sure about other countries, but just looking at the data from the US, like 50 years ago, about 25% of the peoples are myopic. That number, okay, recently, 4 or 5 years ago, has gone up to about 42, 43%. And it's being projected to at least 50%, I think about 52% by 2050. Personally, I think we'll hit that number way before 2050 because the last few years, the population, the percentage of population who are myopic, it's just going up. Okay, so it's like a hockey stick, pretty much. So I think personally, I think we'll hit that 50% way before 2050. So that's a very very concerning. Then there's other issue. Now you become myopic, become nearsighted. There are other issues you got to deal with because you got to deal with glaucoma because your chance of getting glaucoma is higher for myopic patients. Then you got to deal with a retinal issue, retinal detachment, things like this. And also your chance of getting cataract will be a little earlier too. So you got all those things that you got to deal with down the road. And on top of that, prescription is one thing, being myopic, that's one thing, but there's also the macular issues. Uh, we are seeing more macular changes right now for young adults. There is a test, which I'm not sure it's available in all countries, but there's a test where you can measure we call it the MPOS score. So essentially, it's MPOS stands for macular pigment optical density scores. So it measures the amount of pigmentation in your macula, which is very critical in absorbing the blue light to filter out the blue light for you. So people who are on those devices all the time, 4 or 5, 10 hours a day, then the number will start to drop. Okay, so that means that your macula is being affected by the blue light. So I'm hoping that people can start pay attention to that score because that is a very, very good quantifier to find out whether you are at risk of having macular issues down the road or not. We're seeing a definitely a drastic drop in those score the last 5, 10 years, especially last 5 years of pandemics. Everyone's on their computer, cell phone these days. So it's pretty concerning right now. But there's not a lot. I mean, I can tell patient all day long. You got to cut back on just a computer, cell phone. I mean, easier said than done. Most patients just whatever. But until things are too late. So I think that MPOS score is a very good indicator, and I think a lot of people should get that checked out and monitor those scores. So that's another thing that I like to remind your listeners the importance of the MPOS score.
That's really important. Personally, I should also take this up. I mean, I should check, if it's available there in my region, I should definitely,
Yeah.
get that.
hmm You may have to call around the doctors or hospitals, see if they have those equipments to measure the MPOS score. Oh, another sad thing about MPOS score. About 10, 15 years ago, the standard is 0.50 or above. That's considered pretty much a relatively safe range. Recently, they lowered that score to 0.40. Okay, the more damage you have to your eyes, the lower the score. So, in other words, they lowered the standard from point 0.5 to point 0.4. Personally, I think that's wrong. We should not be doing that. Almost like a BMI. Right now, 25% BMI or above, you're considered overweight. Now they change it to 0.30, or 30%, I'm sorry, 25%, or they change to 0.30. That, you know what I mean? Like, you lower the score to um satisfy a lot of, patients, to make them, give them a false impression that their eyes are still relatively okay. So when I found out they lowered the score from 0.50 to 0.40 in our MPOS score, I just couldn't agree with that decisions. Yeah. So down the road, if your listeners decided to get their MPOS scores, I would
Mm-hmm.
prefer that they keep 0.50, at least mentally, aim for 0.50 as the standard. Mhm.
Mm, great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much once again
Right.
for sharing that, Dr. Roger. And I would also, we'll discuss about the solutions as well for the listeners. But there was one particular, and I had discussed this in another one of my conversation that um, a few years back, when we spent considerable amount of, spent considerable number of hours outdoors, my parents used to say, don't stare at sun for long or don't remain outside for long. It will make your eyesight poor. Right now, we are seeing experiments where children, a bunch of kids who have spent um, uh, quite a few number of hours outdoor, they are having good eyesight versus the kids who are not spending enough number of hours outdoor.
Mhm.
So what's your view on that?
Well, if you look at it from a, childhood myopia perspective, it's recommended that you spend at least an hour or two outdoor. You know, but spending time outdoor, there are a couple of other things. Number one, obviously, you don't want to stare at the sun. Okay, potentially you can have a macular problem. We call it the solar maculopathy. So you don't want to stare at the sun. That is just not a very smart, not a wise thing to do, staring at the
Mm,
sun. And also, ideally, you like to wear a pair of sunglasses when you are outdoors.
mm,
Okay, it's something that actually filter out the UV light, because
mm,
there could be other issue. That could be, you can have a little benign tissue growing on the white part. The white part of the eyeball. We call it the pinguecula, which is very, very common. And so you
mm,
need to minimize that. And obviously, there's a cataract issue. You got to wear sunglasses when you're out there. So, other than that, I mean, spending, times outdoor, it's actually a very, very healthy thing to do, not just for the eye, but mentally. Obviously, there's a lot of, it's definitely beneficial. So, I would encourage people, kids especially, at least spend an hour minimum
mhm,
every day outdoor. Mhm.
mhm. Yeah, that is a definitely mindful approach to this. Okay, so Dr. Roger, let's address the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
Okay, so you talk about the mindful screen use. So, how does it actually look like for a 7 or a 10-year-old kid? Practically speaking, what are some of the playful, age appropriate ways to guide kids without, you know, uh, kind of making them think that the devices are your enemies?
Wow, that's a very tall order to do it. There's really no set rule. But the for the American Pediatric Society, they were saying that you need to basically keep your kids away from devices as much as possible. Don't spend more than 1 hour each day. I know a lot of parents are having kids spend 4, 5, 6 hours every day on their devices. I mean, we're talking about kids that haven't even reached first grade yet. So that's another issue. Ideally, the rule of thumb to me was as little as possible looking at those devices, number one. And number two, you try to avoid handheld devices like an iPhone, like a cell phone, like an iPad. Ideally, a desktop is a little better. Even laptop, because you're literally looking down. Okay, laptop, and then you're closer to your face. Every time when you're using a laptop, it's you're still putting more strain on your eyes because the screen is still closer to your face than a desktop monitor. Okay, that's in general. So, ideally, when you are sitting in front of the desktop, and if you reach your arm, I mean, depends on how short or how tall you are, obviously. But for someone with a general height, if you extend your arms out, and if you're able to touch your monitor, that means it's a little too close to your face. Okay, so you like to
Mm.
be a little further out, and also, if you look at the center of the monitor, okay, right, just create a little imaginary center spot on your monitor. That
Okay.
center of the monitor should be about 10 to 15 degrees below your eye level. So that's the ideal monitor positions. So obviously,
Mm.
desktop will probably the only thing will be able to do that. Laptop usually is a lot lower, and cell phone, forget it. iPad, forget it. Those handheld devices, we're literally looking down. So potentially you have a neck and shoulder issues down the road. I mean, our human head, okay, average, okay, it weighs, I'm talking about an adult human head, weighs about 10 to 12 pounds. Okay, so average about 11 pounds. I'm not sure whether you have picked up an 11-pound bowling ball. Okay, if you pick that up, it's actually relatively heavy, but
Mm.
most people can still handle that. But imagine if I ask you to hold the bowling ball for 10 hours a day, that 11 pound will feels like 100 pounds, maybe more. Okay. So same thing if you spend, 10 hours a day on your computer or cell phone or whatever, you start leaning forward, you're putting tremendous pressure on the back of your neck, on the muscle. That's why people start getting neck problems, shoulder problem, even headaches. Severe cases can affect your breathing as well. So you got to be very, very mindful about your head postures. And another thing is, when our eyes become tired, human nature is to lean forward. You don't see people lean back when their eyes become tired. Okay. So if you look at those, yeah. So you look at those people, those computer office workers, everyone's leaning forward. You don't see people lean back. So that's another main concern. So it's the distance. You got to be very, very mindful, and also the amount of time. And obviously, there's a dry issue involved. And then there's another catchphrase. I'm not sure you've heard that before. It's called 20-20-20. That means every 20 minutes, you need to take
Yeah.
at least 20 seconds off and look at things at least 20 feet away. Um,
Mm.
Clinically, that is not enough because our entire system, okay, the ocular system, the accommodative system, takes at least 1 minute to relax. So 20-20-20, it doesn't do a lot, but it's still better than nothing. Okay. So that's the new thing right now. Do it 20-20-20. Easier said than done again. But it's just another thing that if you start these good habits when you're young, chances are it's much easier to maintain that throughout your life. Yeah.
I'll also do it. So, you're saying for every 20 minutes, after every 20 minutes, look at some other things for 20 seconds
Hmm.
with
20 feet
time.
away. Yeah.
20
So
feet
that,
away.
yeah, 20, that's about 6 meters away. Mhm.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I'll
20,
try to
20,
do
20.
that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Great, great, Dr. Roger. And I urge all my listeners, especially the parents hearing us out, keep this in mind. I'll anyway have the takeaways mentioned in the show notes, but still. And Dr. Roger also, um, you also have created the concept of eye-friendly mindfulness games. Just for the interest of time, if you can share any one game, which can be integrated into a child's routine, especially after school or during homework breaks, or that special game time or screen time dedicated.
Okay. Let me clarify that a little bit. It's really not exactly a game. I have a couple of startup companies. One of them, we created the AI software to monitor all risk factors of childhood myopia, digital eye strain, dry eye, things like this. So we make the software fun, make it gamified. But that software is in hiatus right now. Okay, because we have other issues that we have to deal with first. So it's one of those things. But part of that thing is we part of the software was we can monitor, kind of like playing a game, but we can actually monitor your macular health, and we can also train your eye in a way to relax. So instead of using the monitor that we created right now, which it's not, unfortunately, it's not available at this point, you can picture the four corner of your monitors. So every time when your eyes get fatigued, you can just rotate, looking at the four corners, one corner at a time, and then basically, move your eyeball around, and that can help you relax your eyes a little bit rather than staring at the one single spot. And also, blinking is very, very important. So we do have this part of the software. Unfortunately, it's not, like I said, it's not ready yet. Is we use the blink, because we monitor your blink rate and your blink characteristics, whether it's a complete blink or partial blink. We use the blinking as a game too. So unfortunately, we're still, we're kind of short funding. That's one thing. Uh, I got so much on my plate, and then that's why. But there's a couple games out there. Um, Not too many of those are actually developed by eye doctors. Some has really no scientific evidence that it will work, but it's kind of fun. So, but you have to basically look into it, like who actually developed those games. Um, so it's just one of those things that I think that having, if you cannot start a good habit of minimize your screen time, spend more time outdoor, posture issue, things like this, then the plan B is to find those games to help you relax your eyes.
Hmm. No, that is really mindful. That is really mindful. And I know we are, about to conclude this, but I really want to address this important aspect. Some experts, they'll say that the real problem isn't the screens. Because even if the kid or the children, they are not using the screens, but as parents, because now most of us millennials, we have transitioned into our parenting phase of life. We use the screens. We are that generation which has seen the times without screens, and we have now completely shifted onto screens as well. It's more on the lack of emotional connection and family interaction surrounding them. So do you think we are scapegoating technology because it is easy, it is convenient, instead of addressing a deeper relational imbalance?
I think you're hitting the problem round the nail pretty much. It's Unfortunately, that's the culture right now. Right here in the modern, basically the modern societies, the screen is something that people rely on these days. Uh, Let me tell you this: 60% of my patients are elderlies. They are 65 and older. And 10, 15 years ago, those population would still go out, buy newspapers, even reading books. Nowadays are so rare. People, when they wake up in the morning, they turn on their iPad, start reading the news. There's everything there. They can listen to music. It's so convenient. So even older patients are not buying newspapers anymore. So when you look at older people like this and the millennial, they're all doing this, and the young kids will just basically, follow their footsteps. If they're saying, "Hey, my grandparents are doing that, my parents are doing that, why couldn't I do it?" So it's one of those things that unless you have the willpower to control yourself, I'm not sure there's a way to get around that. And everyone's always look for excuses. Kids look for excuses when they spend too much time on the computer saying, "Oh, it's all homework." And parents look for excuses saying that, "Hey, you know what? It's all work. I gotta do my work, remotely." And grandparents were saying that, "You know what? During the day, no one at home because I'm just all by myself. I got so bored. What do I do? Of course, I have to rely on the devices." But I did tell those people, like, look, iPad was invented about how long ago? Like 18 years ago, and iPhone was about 20 years ago. And before that, how did people live? Okay, so we're just look for excuses to basically cover up our bad behaviors. So everyone's laughing. And then even, the ones that let me tell you a couple of very funny stories. I had a very elderly couple. They're all in the 90s.
Okay.
And the wife got two iPad Pro, big screen ones. And the
Okay.
husband got one. So between two of them, they have three. When they wake up in the morning, the wife will grab one of her iPad Pros, keep looking at it, using it until the battery runs low. Then she will basically put it, basically connect it to a charger, get it connected, and grab a second iPad Pro and start using it again. And the husband
Mm.
just keep using the same iPad Pro once throughout the day. The only time they will communicate, okay, is number one, right before lunch. Husband would say, "Hey, honey, what's for lunch?"
Okay.
So she would go on and then she would cook a little bit. And the second time they would talk is during dinner time when the kids come home, when their grandkids come home, they would talk a little bit, right around dinner time. And after that, everybody grabbed their devices again. So that's the modern family. Unfortunately, it's so common these days. So we're talking about people in the 90s, in the 90s, still using that. And then the reason they don't talk to one another, the funny thing was I asked her, like, why don't you talk to your husband? I mean, you guys are, married forever. And she said, that's the reason we don't talk to each other because I'm so sick and tired of talking to him. And then we end up, in an argument eventually. So everyone's on that now. It's just, unfortunately, that was we live, stare at the screen and they live in this fantasy world. Everything is so, yeah, yeah. But it's you gotta start when it's young, and you need to have the willpower to do it.
Exactly. That is true. True. Wonderful. Dr. Rogers, if our listeners would like to connect with you and get a hold of more wisdom from you and resources, what will be the best way?
LinkedIn is because I'm actually on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And also, I have a beverage company. The beverage is specifically designed for the ocular health. The only one in the world, first one in the world, not the only one. First one in the world to do that specifically. So there's a website there. You can actually connect to our team as well. If you have a question there, we'll be able to respond. Obviously, it's right now the beverage is only available here in the U.S. We just launched the product 3 weeks ago. It's called the iDrink. So the website is theidrink.com. If you have a question there, you can reach out to us there as well. I'll do my best to answer each one of the questions. Um, and that's it. It's just I definitely do my best. Sometimes I just can't answer every single one of them because I run two practices and I see patients still 4 days a week. So, but I do my best in during lunchtime or first thing in the morning to respond all my emails, things like this. So that's the best way to reach out to me.
That is really commendable, Dr. Roger. I'll have all the links in the show notes. And thank you. Thank you so, so much.
You're
You
welcome. Mhm.
the most, the most deeply connected part of the conversation for me was that we really don't have to choose between tech and well being. It's more about being intentional and mindful with our choices. So, thank you so much, for Dr. Roger, for toning down the fear and helping us mindfully and, with resilience. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So, listeners, especially for parents who are looking to go deeper, don't forget to check out the show notes for Dr. Wu's resources and the eye drink. And yes, protecting your family's vision can start with just one mindful choice. And here we are. And until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep living mindfully. Thank you.